Hey everybody, welcome back to Getting Ahead of Ourselves.
Getting Ahead of Ourselves.
That's Kyle.
The podcast. With a Kyle.
With the Kyle. Don't sell yourself
With
short.
the only good Kyle.
Ooh, that was risky. Anytime, like, sometimes there are, like, phrases that, like, I put way too much, like worth on, and if like I don't get it right, I'll feel like I like failed everyone.
Yeah.
And I just happened to pick one that was entirely S's. So like, it felt like my like life was like, as it was coming out of my mouth, my brain was like, no, you'll mess this up. You'll ruin it.
Gotta stick the landing.
Yes, the whole time. What did I say? Oh, don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
And I don't think I messed it up.
No, I don't think you did.
Yeah.
I was actually, well, we noticed this recently that like you actually have lost your lisp over the years.
It's crazy.
And I didn't even notice until I went back and like watched one of your first sketches back in like our old apartment and stuff, and it was suddenly really noticeable.
Yeah.
I thought I had just stopped hearing it.
You know what's super effed up about that though?
What?
I'm sad, but I'm not sad for myself. I hated my lisp. I'm sad because people told me how cute it was my whole life. And I assigned value to myself based on it.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually know. It was only men. Men were like, I think your lisp is cute. It was like a neg.
Right.
It would be like if men negged you about something your whole life and then you lost it and you're like, man, I really wish I had that ugly thing I hated my whole life.
It's like when people go, oh, you were funnier when you were fat.
Yeah, it's like that. Like when fat people lose a bunch of weight and then they're like, well, crap.
Yeah, like for making me feel bad about bettering myself.
Right, I was told my whole life that my lisp made me unique and adorable, and now it's gone and I'm just a normal, attractive human being with regular speech.
To all you unattractive lispers out there, the truth is it's not cute. You just say.
Wow. Oh, oops. All right, Kyle.
No, it was. I enjoyed it. It was fine.
You
honestly,
like my lisp?
Yeah. I mean, actually,
So you think I'm uglier without it?
No, in reality, I just straight up didn't know. Like when I first met you, I noticed it. I was like, oh, she has a lisp. And then I stopped hearing it like after the first day we ever hung out.
Do you think people think lisps are cute on boys, or do they only like them on women? Because
it's definitely only a female thing.
Right, because
single imperfections on otherwise attractive women make them more attractive to most people, from what I have gathered.
I think it's like weird things like having really high voices and lisps and stuff. Because
only one thing though. If it's too many things, then it's just an unattractive woman. But if it's an otherwise hot woman with one unattractive weird thing, then it like somehow improves it, I guess.
Luckily, I have multiple unattractive things.
I'm describing this from what I've observed other people say. I don't actually feel this way myself.
I was actually just going to talk about how it's things that make them appear younger or dumber that are attractive, like lisps and high voices.
That made it creepy, but it's probably correct. Sorry, that made it creepy, and so is probably correct.
Right. So anyway, tune into our feminism podcast where I go deeper into the mind of men.
Right. Whenever
Just
we get back
kidding.
to that, we'll just alternate podcasts.
Yeah. All right. So I have a list, like I did last time, of things between 1 and 4 topics. Right. You pick a number between 1 and 14.
I picked 8 last time, and 7 is not available.
Correct. So you will pick a number today, and we will discuss it.
Let's go with 3.
3. Oh no, very controversial.
Uh-oh.
All right.
What if I walked into?
All right. Here. Okay. You ready for this?
I don't know. There's no way to know. It can be about like the future of the meatpacking industry, robot dogs. I have no idea what your thing is ever. You say it's controversial, but I don't know what your ideas are before we come into these.
What if you could pull money out of your bank account by doing a simple hand jive? You're right, everybody.
First off, define hand jive.
Oh, can you hand jive, baby? Oh, can you hand jive, baby? I guess I can't see it on the pod. I'm doing the hand jive. Oh, yeah.
Anyone who doesn't know what that means, Allison just started like doing like a weird little like hand dance while singing this song.
You did not just call it a hand dance. It is a hand jive.
She's just doing this. I don't know what that is.
Well, everyone who's listening does because they've seen Grease.
Okay, so the question is, what if you get money out of your bank account by using like hand gestures or like some kind of physical input instead of a
Yeah, because there's a chip in your hand.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about human chipping
Never,
today.
ever in the history of ever would I ever be okay with this ever. This might be the strongest immediate stance I've ever taken on anything in this podcast, but 100% no. I don't want to chip anybody. I don't want to use my fingerprint on a phone. I don't want to do freaking any. No, it's legitimately a thing though. Like it's like if you want your phone to be secure, do not use the thumbprint. Do not use the facial recognition. Do not use anything anybody can physically use to force your phone open. That's dumb. If you get arrested by corrupt police officers and they want you to police officers, hot take, if you want to protect it, you have to use a code. You have to use a number or something, because the only thing people can't do is get inside your brain and figure out what the code is. But somebody trying to get in your phone, a cop or somebody trying to get evidence on you could force your thumb onto your phone and open your phone up. Yeah. Like it's too easy to keep control over people if it's not inside your brain. Only use passwords. Don't use thumbprint recognition on phones, kids.
Okay, so
and that is my opinion on your topic. Where did you want to go with it?
No, I think that's fine. So many.
Did I do it? Did I end the podcast? Are we done?
No, you haven't even scratched the surface, my guy. So many years ago, I had to get into my car and I had to start my car with a key.
Right.
And I was like 16, right? And as I was turning 16, this was all happening. My dad had just installed like something into our garage that would make our garage open with the same fob that like unlocks his car and started his car. It was like a whole thing. And like soon after, smartphones could open your front door. You can like install little locks on your front door that open. So much. And like people could like open their garage door from far away, but they could also close it from like a distance. Like you're at work and you're like, oh no, I left the garage door open. I'll just touch this thing on my app, and then it does that. And I always thought that was like outrageous. I was like, what? But keys are secure. You can hold them and they're harder to replicate than like just taking someone's phone. Like if you take someone's phone, you could just like press a bunch of, you could just unlock everything in their whole life. You take someone's key, you have to figure out where it goes. You have to know. Yeah. You have to know what you're doing. Anyway, I was always super weirded out by that. But now I literally connect my vitals to a watch that connects back to my phone. That's fair. Every app I have can access all of my photos and my address, and there isn't a single thing I can't buy or do online that doesn't track every element of my existence. So exactly, like, what is the problem with chipping?
So after my opening outburst, I'm going to make the least believable promise of the podcast, which is I will attempt to remain unbiased during this episode.
You don't have to. The people are here for you.
Okay, yeah. So this is one of those things where this is kind of like, this is where every dystopian plot kind of comes from, right? It's like people accept things for convenience, but then somebody always takes advantage of it, and it's a whole thing because it is convenient. You can't say it's not convenient, because it definitely is.
Well, hold on. In that case, are you implying a utopian future does not rely on these things?
I think the problem with that idea is that a utopian future that also includes these items somehow has eliminated the possibility of somebody taking advantage of them, which, as far as I'm aware, is basically impossible. Even talking about that, like, on this show, in which we talk about things that are extremely improbable or things that won't happen for a long time.
But even we wouldn't agree that a utopia could exist.
Yeah, that should be like our anniversary episode for something. Like if we hit like an episode 20 or a big one, we should be like, okay, desperate. Like how could we possibly create a utopian society?
I think we attempted to try that at some point when we accidentally realized everything we talk about ultimately led to a race war.
We've realized that it's like, I think, dystopian Buddhism is in the description of this podcast. But yeah, I think that's kind of okay. In a hypothetical utopia where somehow people couldn't take advantage of it, like, Star Trek world where this just kind of works this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all the coolest sci-fi technology in movies comes from, is convenience, right? It's like everything's compatible with everything. You walk up and the door opens by itself. You have a little thing just like built into your arm that you can just like scan something with to ID you.
You have to admit it would.
Even in like spy movies, it's like you walk up and you do the little eye scanner thing,
But you have to admit that would be so cool.
It would. That's actually, it's really a shame that like actual real life security issues ruin so many cool sci-fi technologies.
Agreed.
Because like everything about Google is so cool.
Yeah.
It really just is. Like the fact that I can pull my phone out of my pocket and open up a random video clip of any movie I can imagine and hit a button and have it appear on the television in the same room is the most sci-fi thing that has ever happened to me in my entire life.
Yeah.
It's so cool that works.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I can just log on to the same like group of accounts from literally anywhere in any device.
Yeah.
File transfer is way easier than it used to be at this point. Really through like I think I use Discord for file transfer more than anything else still because it's actually the fastest. But like, yeah, I mean the world in which like everything connects to everything else and makes everything really easy for people to live is definitely super cool.
Okay, so hear me out. Let me try to make.
But then people abuse it.
Okay, so let me try to make an argument for why this might be cool. Or not even cool, why it might be useful. And this is an incredibly extreme example, and it's a little graphic. So people, just like a warning, I'm about to get into a sort of graphic topic. But let's say chipping went into like a major artery or something. They were small enough that they could actually just like instill it in like our veins. Which means that if you were to get kidnapped, they could know where you are, right? Someone could actually find you, you're kidnapped, or, the kids go missing all the time.
I mean, that would definitely be a selling point. Like, that's a selling point now of, like, phone tracking. You can find your phone. We might also be following you, but you can find your phone.
Okay, so fun thing about that, that's been a thing since, like, 2009, and no one has ever found their phone again. Like, oh, I found my phone. It's in Africa. Oh,
Sure.
Thank God I could find it.
You find your phone, but it has to be on, and the app has to be working, and you have to be signed in.
Right, and, like, I forgot my password because I haven't lost my phone in 2 years.
Right.
And, I can track it. Oh, it's dead. Cool. Like, anyway, that was such a use. Anyway.
It works a little bit better than
selling point.
Oh, sure.
You can find people who have been kidnapped or something like that. It's a good thing for police.
Sure, yeah.
And people can't just remove it from your body because they would just be outright killing you, which is a different crime than kidnapping. So it would depend on the perfect person. But like if like sex trafficking or just human trafficking in general, they don't usually kill you. They want you for work.
Sure, yeah.
Like factory work and all kinds of stuff. So you could potentially just like track anybody down. So there's that. You could find anyone who's missing and know where they are.
Yeah.
And then the police and detectives would have to be held accountable because that they know where those people are because they'd have to die for you to not be able to find them.
Well, and that isn't negligible, for sure. Like that is definitely like an improvement on daily life. So it's a really frustrating issue that like there's definitely like a graph of like life gets better, but also potentially way, way worse and like going up at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's like, oh, why do you have that chip? Well, on the chance that I get trafficked. And it's like, oh, that's, real high risk for reward kind of thing.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
You're giving it a lot up for that potential. Anyway, I'm just curious as to, it seems like you're scrambling with some thoughts here. Like you haven't fully thought about this entirily.
Yeah, no, I
have.
I'm deciding where to go on it for this show because I could just soapbox rant about
no one will stop you.
How I don't like government tracking and invasion of privacy.
So
and all
you
that
could,
crap,
but I think most people probably feel that way.
Well, everybody knows this. This isn't like new information or anything. Like it's like even if like. Well, I guess it's like everybody kind of makes this decision, right?
Right.
You decide to give up some amount of freedom for some amount of convenience. This is actually society. This is like I forget which philosophers defined this, but like this is the social contract kind of. It's like you give up. There are 2 meters of independence and safety and you basically get to fill one up at the expense of the other, and you can balance them out however you want, but you don't get to have both. You either are completely independent and in danger, or you are completely safe but not free at all, right? It's like you can that's sort of like the social contract.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of what we're like when you talk about like the convenience of technology, it usually gets into that territory.
I can narrow this topic down. We already live in a world in which human chipping exists. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So like, let's talk about the ethics and the non-ethics of that. So first thing comes to mind is like, how old should someone have to be to...
What do you mean? Like, I know that technology exists and could be done, but it's not like a ubiquitous part of our society yet. So
Right. So everyone is chipped, essentially. And we have to decide when and how the future generation gets chipped. So let's like, should you be able to chip a child at like 2 so you can always know where they are for any reason, or would you have to be 18 to condone getting chipped? And should you be able to say no? It's normal. Like, I mean, if people want to drive cars from the 50s, they can, because those items still exist. So you could just have you could be outdated in your technology and not have a chip and open your house with an app instead of your hand.
Yeah, no, and when it gets to kids, it gets kind of shady, because I'm an American, so I have to say, no, you can't chip children. That goes against personal liberties and stuff, and just, I mean, that's what we believe here in our culture, that's bad.
Yeah.
There might be other places in the world where they have different standards for that, because they have a different society that operates in a different way, and maybe they don't have a reason to fear, evil government overlords quite as much. Or capitalist overlords is more of the correct.
Do you think it should be illegal?
Yeah.
But what if, I mean,
yes.
shouldn't parents always have a right to know exactly where their children are?
No.
Oh.
Okay. No, I disagree with this. I disagree with the whole Life 360 thing, even, I think already causes this problem. This already exists for people who are. I know.
I fully anticipate using it on any potential children I might have.
I know. It's hard, because it's like, I don't know. It definitely gets really difficult when you start involving kids, because
that's the fun.
It's so there's so many like ridiculous stories of. I mean, parents obviously can go just way overboard with it. Actually, this probably is a really good example, because this is a good microcosm of the larger issue, right? Like children and parents, somebody who has authority and making somebody else have like tracking you, basically,
right?
Because it is kind of it's the same. It's the safety versus freedom thing, and we've kind of decided universally as a society that like the safety of children is more important than their freedom, because they are underdeveloped, right? They can't make smart decisions for themselves, so the parent has to make decisions for them to ensure their safety, and up until the point where they become an adult and can make those decisions for themselves,
right?
So it kind of makes sense. I think it would be damaging, though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of especially in the later years of childhood, like it kind of makes sense to be able to keep track of your kid when they are actually a toddler, and like where if they get separated from you, that's like, if it's unintentional, I guess there's something about like if they make the decision to separate from you. I'm not a parent.
Right.
I'm going to throw that out there.
We should have specified for this podcast, like we did our old ones from millions of years ago. Kyle and I are very underqualified for anything we might talk about.
This is not us acting like we have any authority to make any kind of scientific claims. We don't know what we're talking about. We are just throwing whatever we have in our heads out into the open.
Not only do we have no authority, we have zero education. As we talked about in our first podcast.
I have worse than zero education. I have a film degree.
Right. Kyle went to art school. I dropped out of college after 2 years, after falling behind in algebra throughout high school. So I'm missing both math, chemistry, and biology credits from high school. Then I got into college and I dropped out after 2 years. So really, there could not be any less qualified people to have these conversations, which is why we created the podcast.
That being said, I feel like as you get into the teenage years, it can get really damaging developmentally to have that happen, though. Like, to have that as part of your development. Like, I think as a little kid, I don't think it makes that big of a difference. I think you probably, like for a certain number of years, you just kind of think your parents know where you are anyway, right? There isn't an assumption of independence as an actual child.
Yeah.
But at some point you start developing into your own person. There's the entire teenage developmental, like, in-between stages of being a kid and being an adult.
Right.
And I think if you raised a kid with the knowledge that somebody always knew where they were, that develops people who become okay with it, or at least come to expect it. They may not be okay with it, but if it's part of your daily life, I think it becomes much easier for you to be like, okay, yeah, I can have a chip in my body that the government can also track, and that's just normal. It normalizes it, I guess. I feel like that's kind of the start of the entire thing. Yeah. And obviously that would be a problem. I think is what it comes into. It's like, we can talk about the utopian ideal of all this really cool technology, but in real life it's a problem, because you can never remove the person who tries to abuse it. They always will be there. There will always be somebody who uses mass amounts of technology and things that, like, if there's an opportunity to manipulate people, someone will take it.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about it more, it feels like if this has to exist, then we have to rewrite our understandings of, like, what our freedoms could look like. Like, let's say we do all have chips and we call out of work and say, oh, I'm sick, I'm staying home. And then in real life, we go out and we party, we go hang out with our friends because we didn't want to actually work that day. Yeah. If your employer could just look up where you are, that would be a serious issue. We deserve a right to privacy while still maintaining this idea that we could have chips, right? That people could. So we'd have to rewrite a lot of, like, what's acceptable behavior. Like, you have to be able to just, you would have to allow for people to call out of work and not have to give a reason, right? Like, we'd have to be able to protect some elements of our lives.
That's an interesting take.
Like, if we sacrificed certain levels of privacy, we'd have to gain them back in different ways. We'd have to be able to lie or not have to say anything, not have to give up certain information. Like, we'd have to rewrite everything. Because at this point, like, you can't lie to your... I mean, you can, but you can't lie to your boss about where you are.
I can be more honest, but you have to be more accepting of the honesty, kind of, I guess.
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit like the Ricky Gervais movie, where it's like, we all just have to deal with the fact that I have given up my privacy, so now you just have to deal with the consequences of knowing too much.
Right.
Like, I'm out partying, but you can't do anything.
Right.
You should never have been able to do anything in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't really have very far to go on that idea. I was just thinking about it.
It's definitely an interesting concept. I don't think we could get there.
No, of
I don't
course
think
not.
I don't think that version is realistic
It's because
either.
companies own us, and
Yeah. Okay, so what is there a non-depressing way to, like,
get close to your mic?
Is there a non-depressing way to like conceive of how this would go in real life? Because we are moving that direction.
To chipping people?
I mean, kind of. We already have phones that can follow us wherever we are. We already have all of our information, and we pay with the same credit card for everything. Mm-hmm. All that information is pretty much shared by everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are identities, people are numbers, and those numbers and their activity can be tracked. Yeah. That's what targeting advertising does. It's it tracks all your information online. A profile is basically built of you. So, and the only thing that hasn't happened so far is that all of that hasn't been consolidated into one single data file on you that can be accessed by people with, like, the proper authority, I guess.
Yeah, so I think that what's interesting is we almost have to, like, you know how, like, when somebody, like, does something gross to you? Not gross. Let me think about it. Like, okay, so someone decides they're going to put their finger in your mouth, right, to bother you, right?
Okay.
And your response is to pretend to like it. It's to, your response is, like, you're going to suck on their finger and look at them, like, right in the eyes. Now you've turned it on them. This is my theory for how we handle this. People are like, we're going to steal all your privacy. And you're like, you're not going to steal it. I'm going to give it to you. And then we turn into the invention of lying movie, where literally it's like, oh, you want this information? Have all of it. And now we exist in a world where everyone shares everything to an extreme extent that we eventually revert back to choosing a future in which we don't want this information about people anymore. Boom. Genius brain. I've outthought this problem. Boom.
I don't know what to say to that.
Welcome to my world. But it was kind of it's a little bit of like the boss thing that I was talking about, like the work example. You know, it's like, okay, you wanted to spy on me and know everything I was literally doing. Here's what I was doing, and here you can't do anything.
I think
about
that could work on one person.
What does that mean?
I think like from you to another person, I think that could drive another person away and go, okay, maybe I don't like this. I don't think you could do that to
the
a
government?
government necessarily.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, probably not. It was a stupid idea, but it was a fun thing for me to think of. Anyway, to talk about like a utopian idea of this, I don't know. I don't think it's possible.
I'm still trying to figure out how to save like my thought now is like how do we recover from the path we're inevitably headed down like in real life now? Like how do you stop the eventual you are just a number and you are tracked in literally everything you do scenario? Can you? Is it possible, or is that just where we're going to end up?
I think it's possible. I think so. Our friend Matt, who you know as Matt, he said something really profound once that I completely forgot now that I distracted myself with naming Matt twice. What did he say?
You didn't even identify him correctly. His name is Matlock. That's how people know him.
Oh my God, you're right. Calling him Matt for so long. What was I going to say that he said?
I don't know.
Oh, Matt said something along the lines of like one of the most dangerous things and the reason that no one ever wants to change the world or start a revolution is because we aren't uncomfortable enough. Things just aren't that hard.
Well, that's why this is the most realistic version of a dystopia, because it creates comfort. Like that's what the exchange is.
Right.
You get comfort back for every little bit of freedom that you lose. So
right.
Why would anybody want to do anything? It's already hard not, like, I would throw that phone away immediately if it had not somehow become vital to my everyday existence over the last few years.
Yeah.
I don't want that in my pocket, but it is every single day.
Yeah, in the future, it's not in your pocket. It's in your blood.
It's already, I mean, we're already here. That's what it actually is. We're talking about this like it's a future thing. We are in this future already. This already exists.
I think, honestly, the way to solve this is to go to Norway.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Norway, the land of no phones or satellites.
No, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, it's Norway that is statistically the happiest place in the world. Which means on average.
Well, okay. I guess here's the other way we can.
It just means, but they're equally as caught up with the rest of the world, which means when things are introduced
it just means
in
they've
Norway,
accepted it. The other way to do this is you just lean into it and you go, you know what? My life is super convenient and I won't care that I'm being tracked 24/7 and that if I do something people don't like, they will show up in an unmarked van and snuff me out. And now everything's fine. And now it's a utopia.
You think the people in Norway are happy, like they're the happiest people in the world just because they're complacent and in like a massive amount of denial?
Well, I don't think they don't have the same technology we do.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Yeah.
But you think it's like you don't think that they have just like better systems in place to monitor their government. You think they're all just like in the deepest state of denial back to the point of happiness? Because if that's true, we have a chance.
I don't think. I think the reason Norway is the happiest country in the world is completely unrelated to the conversation we're having. Wow. I think that Google is tracking Norwegians through their Google Pixels just as easily as they are tracking us through ours, and that the Norwegian government probably doesn't have a whole lot to do with it.
Anyway, hit me up, Norway. We're looking for sponsors. Okay,
actually, there's another just spin-off conversation that I would like to have at some point is just the idea of like eventually companies becoming more powerful than governments. So we're moving that direction too.
No. Someone had mentioned that in our chat on the first podcast.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about that because it's already real. There is no future talk. Like.
That's what I just said about this conversation.
I know, but like, are we? No, but that's not true because we're not all actually chipped yet. You're asking. That's a future thing to talk about.
We kind of are. You have have something that can track you, and you won't get rid of it.
Chips are so much more than that. Anyway.
They are. I mean,
point is, we're not going to talk about what happens when companies are larger than the government because it's already true. This isn't like some dumb conspiracy. Like, go pay attention. Companies run the government with funding. I don't know what else to tell.
Okay, I guess my final thoughts on this future.
Yeah,
on the chip future. Yeah. Is legitimately this isn't just me trying to make like a cop out thing.
Yeah.
I think probably the chip thing, the actual chip thing, I actually think won't ever happen. And I don't think it will ever have to. I think the idea of embedding a chip in you is ingrained by popular media and weirdly religions so deeply as like a sign of evil that people would never accept it. But I don't think they'll have to. Like I just said, we have phones that can track us, and we will not get rid of those phones.
Yeah.
We will not choose to get rid of those phones. Mm-hmm. I think if you just continue down that line, this is it. We will all trade convenience for the freedom. Like they won't have to chip us because they will make convenient enough technology that we will all choose to take it, and we'll just accept that that's the reality. Even though technically we could all throw it out the window at any point, nobody actually will. I think that's what I think the future of this looks like.
So here's the big question for you then. How much technology are you willing to reverse to maintain your privacy?
I have asked myself that question almost every single day for the past 2 years.
All right. Well, we'll end on that. I think our time is about up. What's it say? What are we at?
It says 30 minutes and 29 seconds.
Oh my God. Freaking nailed it.
You did.
All right. Well, then that's about it. Kyle, Buddhism?
Buddhism is a myth. We will never ascend to true happiness because we will be tied down by our technological overlords.
That's a good one.
Buddhism has died.
All right.
We have failed. Goodbye, everybody.